That's a good looking bike. Right, I'm just going to turn the intercom off for a second. Okay, 2021 BMW S1000XR, based on the legendary S1000RR engine, producing about 165 horsepower, 84 pound-per-feet of torque. This is a brand new machine. It's got everything on it, all the electronics package, all the carbon fibre package. It's got a Garmin, and it's nicely set up, basically fully loaded. Fully loaded is about 25 grand, plus you're on the road and out the door. Now, I've ridden the first and second generation of this bike, and I didn't get on with it too well, mainly because of vibration. First generation suffered a lot of vibration and really numbed the hands. The second generation, BMW rubber mounted the bars and claimed it was fixed, but I didn't think it was fixed, and many people agreed with me. This is the third generation, and I have two friends who own the 21XR and both claim to not suffer from hand vibrations, so we shall see. Now, I've just got off my Street Fighter, so it feels like this needs to be wound up a bit to get to the power. It's got it, but it isn't producing as much grunt low down as my Street Fighter. Not that they're really comparable bikes, one being a Street Fighter, this being more of a racy sport tourer. But I can say the engine is very smooth. There's a few kind of tingles through the seat, and I'm not really much of a fan of the seat initially. I think the seat is it pitches you forward like a 1260 Multistrada, and it's also not that broad and not that thick. It kind of feels acceptable padding wise, but it really locks you into one position, and on a long journey I'm not sure that's going to be so easy to move around. It pushes your thighs against the side of the tank, and that kind of gives you good support and leverage under hard braking. And this one has a Wunderlich screen fitted to the top of it. Now, just stuck behind slow moving traffic like this, it is very smooth in the mid-range. Fourth gear, 3,000-4,000 revs, 40 miles an hour. It's cake. So its low speed manners are very nice. It feels fairly well balanced. I like the bars. They're a little low for this category, but they're quite wide, which is nice, which is giving good support through the bends. I'll be taking it on some very twisty roads in a couple of miles time, but I want to get a feel for how it is at just kind of cruising speeds. And quite a lot of vibration on the windshield, but it's a nice thick plexiglass, so it shouldn't cause any cracking problems, I wouldn't imagine. Ride quality is pretty good. BMW's electronic suspension is getting very good these days, and it rides very nicely. This is just in road mode. I've got a mode switches on the right here. I'll probably switch to sport shortly. Got ESA here. We're on road settings and auto, which is more for comfort at present. I'm not a huge fan of this black plastic centre bit. It looks a bit cheap and unpainted, whereas the angles, sharp angles on the painted bits actually look really nice, and this red is a very nice colour. The carbon fibre is also extremely high quality. It's a proper kind of pre-preg carbon fibre. and it really does look good. It's very good quality. Quick shifter is very good, much better than the other BMWs. Not up there with the Multi or the Street Fighter, but you know, we're talking small degrees here. Switch it to Dynamic Pro. Okay, let's see what she's got a bit. Let's see what she's like through the bends. Pretty nice, holds the line quite well. I think it will take a little bit of getting used to after the Street Fighter. It is a little bit, you know, longer wheelbase. So having just got off that, it takes a few miles to adjust. But probably pretty comparable with other big adventure bikes that were on the sporty side, like the Multistrada, for instance. Nice left to right, very little effort required to counter steer it. Feels pretty nice. Got a good rev range on this, being an inline 4 derived from a sports bike, so you've got plenty of revs to play with. It doesn't redline till nearly 12,000, so you can often keep it in the same gear and just you know, run it through a corner rather than having to unsettle the bike by changing gear. But having that Pro shifter, you can move up and down through the box pretty easily, and that means that, you know, if you get it a bit wrong in a bend, you can always knock it down without having to resort to the clutch. Although what I find often is that riders who you know, go a bit hot into a corner will often grab the clutch and brake, because it's a, you know, it's a thing they're most familiar with doing. So it's something to learn if you've got a bike with a quick shifter, just to get comfortable with doing that. And it really depends how much it upsets it in the bends. GSA is pretty horrible, to be honest, but quick shifter on this is nice. Multistrada, all the Ducatis are wonderful, KTMs are good. So if you own one of those bikes, get used to using the Pro shifter up and down. You never know when you might need to use it as opposed to want to use it. Brakes feel pretty good. There is actually a brake recall on this. It's part of the global generic brake recall for BMW, which I think they could have handled a bit better, but we'll ignore those politics for today. I would have expected it to gather a little bit of speed there, a bit quicker. I could have knocked it down a gear or two, but I wanted to see what the roll on in 6 was from mid-range. It's a little bit lethargic, but you know, I have to put this in perspective, right? Currently, my only bike is a 208 horsepower lightweight machine, and most people riding this would be scared of the Jesus out of them just opening it up in any gear. It's a very fast bike, and actually the seat is feeling a little bit better now that I'm acclimatizing to it, and I think you can make good steady progress on this. It's definitely a big step forwards in terms of ride comfort and vibrations for BMW. The vibes are a lot more subdued. It's still there, you can feel them, but they're not annoying, you know. They're more of a rumble and a vibe than tingly vibes, you know, which you can get off inline 4s. Sometimes they can really annoy. Quick bike, I think you'd have to do some decent miles on it to be able to get the most out of it. You know, I've literally just got on it for the first time. I'm not going to be able to push it to anywhere near its limits on this ride, but it does ride nice, it steers nicely, and that's subscribers to my channel know that's a key thing for me. I want a bike that can steer nicely so I can always hit the apex and get around the corners safely. So back to kind of more normal road conditions now. Let's change the mode back to road, shut the throttle, put it in the clutch, open it, back in road, a little bit softer, a little bit nicer. So there we go, good job BMW. The bike is definitely improved. Well done. You're good, thank you.
So yesterday I rode the BMW S1000XR, and it's a big improvement over the Mark 1 and Mark 2 versions, which I've ridden as well. It's much smoother, less vibrations, and feels more modern. It's obviously got benefits from the modern TFT from the GS, and that looks a lot better. And overall, it's more comfortable because the ride quality is better, and also brakes are better, display is better, and there's no real problem with vibrations, which really plagued the Mark 1 particularly, but also the Mark 2 for many people as well. So a good update, and it's a very worthy and good bike. So what else can I tell you about it? I mentioned on the initial impressions video that the carbon fibre is very good. Normally carbon fibre packages are not something that I buy into. They're usually too expensive for what you get visually and quality wise, but if I was buying an XR, I would definitely buy the carbon package because the quality is very high. It's very thick pre-preg, and in terms of the hatchings on it, the kind of dog tooth, if you like, within the design, they're quite large, and it really looks quality, very glossy, and really helps set off the bike and distinguish the bike, because, you know, the looks are a bit kind of subjective. A lot of people think it looks really cool as standard, and other people think it needs a little bit of a polish, like most adventure bikes. Really, they're not the best looking things, but in terms of practicality, usability, they're kind of the best things around. So speaking of which, competition wise, people tend to think of the XR as being part of the adventure range and being comparable with other big adventure touring bikes, and it's not really playing that game. It's more of a tool rounder than an adventure bike. You certainly wouldn't plan to do any dirt roads on it. Be perfectly fine down a dry gravel road if you had no choice about it, but it's not something you think, oh yeah, I'll go off-roading at the weekend on my XR. No, it's much more of a kind of sports tourer, if you like, a kind of tool rounder, and forgive the background noise. In that sense, it's kind of more comparable, I would say, with, well, you've got the Yamaha Tracer GT, but it's playing a higher quality and more powerful game than that particular machine. You've also got the Kawasaki 1000SX, which is a little bit more powerful than the Yamaha, and a little bit more polished, and an overall package, and a good kind of all-rounder for general touring purposes, but still not really up there with the XR with its 165 horsepower, 84 pound-per-feet of torque, and it's still got a 17-inch front wheel, of course, so it steers and handles well. I would say it's only real true competition in terms of its premium branding and quality and features and power and performance would be a KTM GT with the Super Duke 1290 engine, and that's playing, if anything, even a slightly sportier game, I would say. Very similar in terms of kind of spec and performance and ability. Hard to say which would be more comfortable. The KTM's probably a little easier to get on and off, not quite as tall, being more of a sport tourer based on a sports bike. And the S1000R, S1000XR, of course, has the S1000RR derived engine, so that's also built on a sports bike platform, but it's taller, more like an adventure bike. even though I wouldn't necessarily class it as an adventure bike. So I would say the KTM is probably its closest competitor, and if this is the sort of bike for you, I'd probably demo both and see how you get on. I would say the BMW have very good dealers and a good reputation for reliability. KTM's reliability can be a bit patchy, but the latest models seem good, and it really depends on your preference there in terms of branding, and also whether you have good local dealership and support. And if you only have one dealer, if that goes out of business, where's your next dealer? Those kind of real world living with tangibles come into play when considering those bikes. How does it fare against adventure bikes, proper adventure tourers? If you're kind of cross shopping, if you like, and you're not sure whether you want a tool rounder, a sporty tool rounder like an XR, or whether you want a full-on touring adventure bike. Well, if you're kind of two up with luggage and you're going big distances and you want minimal maintenance on the road, a GS or a GSA is obviously a good bet. It'd be more comfortable for your pillion, a little bit more practical in terms of the panniers are typically boxy and top openers. You got shaft drive, so there's no chains to adjust and oil. And that would be kind of a more comfortable, better all-rounder, but not as sporty and dynamic as the XR, not quite as fun. In terms of other bikes you could look at, things like the Tenere, the V-Strom and the Versys, just not sporty enough really. They're just not really up there. The new Pan America is very good. Doesn't have a quick shifter, which is a bit of an omission, particularly against its adventure bike peers. But a good fast bike with plenty of power, good two-up, and sportier than you'd imagine, with top draw brakes and great dealer support. So an option there if the looks appeal to you, which they can divide, particularly the frontal aspect. There's also, I would say the Africa Twin isn't powerful enough, but you would definitely think about the Multistrada, because the Multistrada V4 is an adventure bike with a 19-inch front wheel, but it is fast with great handling, great braking, great two-up comfort and practicality. It's a really good all-rounder with long service intervals of 9,000 miles and 36k valve adjustments. So ignore my Yorpin Bengal cat. So that would be, if you were cross shopping the two, as it were, sporty tool rounder, sport tourer versus an adventure bike, maybe the Multi would be the one for you. The Multi to me feels like it provides a little bit more low down power, and it feels a little smoother actually, I think, and certainly more comfortable. The seat is flatter and it's softer, it doesn't lock you quite in one position. And I would say that if you were cross shopping both, again, try the V4S Multistrada versus the S1000XR, and you'll know after riding them, which you like the most, whether you like the kind of revy nature of the inline four in the S1000XR, or whether you like the kind of almost a V-twin type feel to the V4 with lots of punchy low down grunt from the Multistrada. And of course, if looks are very important to you, you'll know which one appeals to you most, visually. So other than that, if you're cross shopping, still a bit confused, I hope that helps in terms of other bikes you'd like to demo along with the S1000XR. And in terms of just thinking about the S1000XR, yeah, big improvement, BMW on the Mark 1 and Mark 2. If you've ridden those bikes and you really like them, then you're certainly going to like the Mark 3. It's a much improved bike. So thanks very much to Scott, who let me ride his machine. It was nice to try a Mark 3 and put the ghost to bed of the Mark 1 and Mark 2, which primarily because of the handlebar vibrations would have stopped me from buying those bikes. And the current one, if I wanted an inline 4, that's a tall rounder, yeah, it's a good bike, and it's it would be high up on that potential list. Anyway, take care. Hey you, if you want to become one of the Ride On people, don't forget to subscribe. Ride often, ride carefully, ride on.